Hi, Sean. I'm very well. Yourself? Good, good.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Can the people virtually hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Craig Evans. I'm Governance Services Officer at the West Midlands Combined Authority. I just have a couple of really quick announcements before we get into the meeting. The first of which is just to advise that there is going to be a fire alarm test at 11 o'clock this morning that will last for 2 minutes. It does not mean that we need to leave the meeting. So as it's just a test of the fire alarm system. So what I propose is, if the meeting has not ended by then, that we just remain where we are. I'm not aware that we need to leave, so if we just remain where we are and just wait for that fire alarm test to finish. And then just the other announcement for people in the meeting room, microphones, when talking, there is a button, there's an icon of a person speaking. So if you can just press the red button so that people virtually can hear, and then when you finish speaking, if you can press the button again to turn off. So that's the announcements, and I'm just going to now move us on to item 1, which is the appointment of a chair to this meeting. Unfortunately, the chair, Councillor Izzy Second, has sent her apologies as is unable to attend at least the first hour of this meeting. And as the board does not currently have a vice chair, that will be decided in the September Wellbeing board meeting. For the board meeting to proceed, we need to appoint a chair. So Sue Ibbotson, who is with us in the meeting room this morning, has very kindly offered to chair the meeting. So I just need to ask for committee board member approval to endorse Sue Ibbotson to chair the meeting, and I will do that by taking a 3-second silence. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So I would like to now hand over to Sue Ibbotson to chair the meeting of the Wellbeing Board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig, and good morning, everybody. I know many people on the line and in the room, but for those who I haven't met before, I'm Dr. Sue Ibbotson. I'm the DHSC's Regional Director for the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities, and NHS England's Regional Director of Public Health for the Midlands. And it's nice to see so many people here this morning. Thank you very much. Now, we have new members here today, and I think 1 or 2 substitutes, so I propose that we do introductions in a moment, and we'll start in the room and then go to the lines. Craig, do we have any apologies before we do that?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Chair. So, as mentioned, apologies received from Councillor Second, and then we have apologies from Councillor Khan from Coventry, Councillor DeSico from Solihull, Councillor Flint from Walsall, Councillor Jaspow from Wolverhampton, Councillor McCarthy from Birmingham, and Lisa Stally-Green from Birmingham and Solihull ICB. However, can I note that Dr. Clara Day is Lisa Stally-Green's substitute.
Thank you very much. And noting that there are a number of local authority members absent. Can you just confirm that we're quorate?
I can confirm that we are quorate with 7 committee board members.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, just for the benefit of everybody, can we quickly go around and introduce ourselves? And I'll start over here in the room.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Anita Holbrook and I'm the Thriving to Work Strategy and Delivery Lead. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Anita.
Morning, I'm Jeff Fancy, Head of Mental Health Partnerships at the West Midlands Combined Authority.
Morning all. I'm Stacey Gunther, the Health and Wellbeing Programme Manager from OHID, working to support the CA with their wellbeing agenda.
Simon Hall, I'm the Strategic Lead for Wellbeing and Prevention at the West Midlands Combined Authority. It's good to meet everybody.
Morning all, Strategic Lead.
Good morning, Craig Evans, Governance Services Officer at the West Midlands Combined Authority, and I'll be noting the minutes of this meeting.
Hi, Phil Johns, Chief Executive, Coventry and Warwickshire Integrated Care Board.
Morning, Mubashir Jazz. I'm the Head of Wellbeing and Prevention, Head of Health and Communities now actually at the West Midlands Combined Authority.
Thank you. And Craig, could you just orchestrate colleagues on the line? So my eyes won't work quite that well.
Do you just want me to say their names? Sorry.
Well, if you could just bring people in, because there's quite a lot of people on the line.
Okay, so Sophie Petrie.
Hi, my name's Sophie Petrie and I'm the Wellbeing Manager for West Midlands Police. I'm standing in today for Amy Smith, Head of Employee Relations.
Hello, sorry, Matthew Leake.
Hi, yeah, I'm Matt Leake, Principal Public Health Specialist for City of Wolverhampton Council, standing in for John Denley, Director of Public Health.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Sorry, Councillor Bevan, I think you're muted.
I think I was muted. Yeah, Councillor Ian Bevan, Lead Member, Public Health and Wellbeing, Dudley Council.
Thank you, Mark Axel.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Mark Axel, Chief Executive, Black Country Integrated Care Board.
Clara Day.
Hello, I'm Clara Day. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Birmingham and Solihull Integrated Care Board. I'm here for Lisa Sally Green, who's the Chief Nurse and Deputy Chief Exec of Birmingham and Solihull, who normally attends.
Thank you, Harry Barton.
Hello, I'm Harry Barton. I'm Head of Strategy and Direction at West Midlands Police, here with my colleague Sophie.
Thank you, Mike Hastings.
Hold on, just trying to get off mute. Sorry, just trying to get off mute there. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Hastings. I'm the digital lead for the Black Country ICB and the Integrated Care System. I'm here representing the Black Country, Birmingham, Solihull and Coventry and Warwickshire systems for IT and digital.
Thank you. Councillor Gutteridge.
Good morning, I'm Julian Guttridge, Health and Portfolio Holder at Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council for the Health and the Environment.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Hello, Margaret Bell. I'm Portfolio Holder for Health and Adult Social Care for Warwickshire County Council.
Abu Affan.
Hi everyone, Mayad Abu Affan, Acting Director of Public Health, Dudley Council.
Thank you. Phil Cole.
Hi, good morning everyone. Phil Coles, I'm the finance support for Mubashir and his team at the WMCA.
Thank you. Councillor Hartwell.
Good morning, my name is Councillor Suzanne Hartwell. I'm the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Health, Sandwell Council. Just to say, I will need to leave at 11:45, so apologies.
Thank you, Councillor Hartwell. And Sean Russell.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sean Russell. I'm the Universities Lead on behalf of Midlands Universities, currently working at Coventry University on MHPP, Midland Health and Productivity Pilot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Sorry that took a little time, but I think it's good that we know who's in the room, both virtually and here at Summer Lane. And it's good to see so many people in this conversation. Hopefully we'll have a good one. Item 3, declarations of interest. Can I just check if there are any? Okay, silence as the fact that there aren't. Thank you. And so we go to item 4 and Chair's remarks. So just to note that this is the start of a new fiscal year for the first of the meetings of this board in the new fiscal year. And obviously we've got some new members, not all of whom are here today, but we do have a range of new members, and we will also, of course, need to elect a new vice chair, and we'll do that, as Craig says, at the next meeting in September. The new year also means new high-level deliverables for the team, and we'll come to that in your pack of papers in due course for discussion and hopefully approval. Many of the new local authority members for the board are the new portfolio holders, and that is why we've got those new members. So welcome to all of those new members. We've also had a restructure within the West Midlands Combined Authority, and the Wellbeing team, is now renamed as the Health and Communities team, and sits within the Economy, Skills and Communities Directorate with Dr. Julie Nugent as the Executive Director. So it's quite a significant change there. I don't think I have any other notes, so we'll keep moving. So the minutes of the last meeting then in your pack, pages 1 to 6. First of all, we'll take any matters of accuracy. We just go through those. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5 of those minutes. Thank you. We'll approve those as an accurate note. There were a number of actions in that in those minutes, and it might just be useful to have a quick update on those. The first, I think, was the point about the production of the new Health of the Region report, and there was a good conversation about that last time. Mubashir, do you want to just update us about where we are on that?
Absolutely. So I think not just the last board, but I think when we first presented the early draft of this report, and when we talked about the need for potentially doing a brief update. Apologies, I don't know if you were able to hear me. I just didn't turn the mic on. I was just saying that when we first initially discussed the update to the Health of the Region report, there were a few objections, obviously, in the sense of the requirement and the need. And we decided to try and pursue it along with an online data hub. As we progressed and we had even further objections raised last time, I think it's probably best to actually think about the necessity of the brief update that we wanted to publish for the Health of the Region report. There have been some changes to the statistics since the initial report was published, but there hasn't been a significant movement away from it. And given that the Directors of Public Health had an objection to the case studies that were included, that would have formed the bulk of the report, I think it's probably wise to think about focusing more on the next edition of the full report rather than actually try to publish a brief update. In regards to the data hub, the online data hub, that work has actually been picked up by another part of the Combined Authority in thinking about how we can combine the various data sets that we have access to, as well as what we can access publicly, into an online resource for the Combined Authority, and will be led by the new head of research and innovation within the Combined Authority. So the work that we have started has been handed off to that initiative, which is just kickstarting now as we've just recruited the person. So so this is just to say essentially that I think on the basis of all of the objections raised last time, I think it's probably best for us to not publish a brief update to the report. Even though if we did want to go ahead, we could be able to publish the very, very brief update if we needed to. But this is me asking the board for approval to actually think about starting to focus on the next edition of the report due in 2023 instead.
Thank you, Mubashir. In terms of the data, obviously the pandemic, as Mubashir has alluded to, has changed some of the figures quite significantly, and if members want to access an overview of the health profile for the regions, that has been very recently published by the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities, is on the gov.uk website, and we could perhaps include the link with the minutes. It does demonstrate the increasing inequalities in healthy life expectancy, and talks about the morbidity and deterioration in some of the health behaviours that account for those that gap, that increasing gap. And I think it makes it clear that we're going to see an ongoing indirect effect of the COVID pandemic for some considerable period of time to come, with its inevitable impact on the demand for health and social care services. So, you know, that report is available, and I think illustrates the importance of continuing the work that the Combined Authority can do, particularly in the field of the wider determinants and the impact that the Combined Authority can have on people's lives. So that's available as well, and perhaps we could circulate the link.
Absolutely, and I'll just mention that I think Birmingham City Council have also recently published community health profiles for various communities, which have been praised nationally as well. So I think certainly we can add links to those in the minutes as well.
That's right, and those community profiles further illustrate the disparities in health experience across a range of different community and groups of experience across the city. Very, very helpful. Okay, going back to the minutes of the last meeting, there were some suggestions for future agenda items, one of which was the review of the Thrive at Work. We're considering that later on the agenda today. And the other two were in relation to the development of, to become an exemplar region for getting more physical people, more disabled people physically active. And I know that is to some extent covered in the future work programme, but I wondered if we were going to schedule a specific session at a future meeting on physical activity and disability for the region. So that's a question. And I think the other item discussed last time was the consideration that the board should look to build on the legacy of the Birmingham Commonwealth Games. And again, I wondered whether it would be worth bringing forward a paper to a future meeting to consider what that legacy might be and the way in which the Combined Authority might build on it.
So certainly, I think the paper on the Commonwealth Games legacy is certainly something that we should bring to the next board if we can, Simon. And on the disability exemplar region, I think one of the suggestions that we've proposed within our devolution proposal is around a disability strategy, which aims again to make us an exemplar region on that, as well as some of the work, like you mentioned, that is ongoing in terms of some of our program work on Include Me and some of our other active communities work focusing specifically on disabled citizens. So in terms of bringing that to the board, I think it's probably best to bring it once we've had an answer to the devolution proposal and how we move forward with the proposed disability strategy for the region. So certainly 2 of these items we will come back to in the future, and some of the project work that we're doing at the moment will be addressed in the paper today.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments on the minutes? I think the final area for that was discussed last time about the considering opportunities within the Levelling Up white paper, I believe those are now captured within the draft Devo deal, and so we'll obviously check that out when we come to discuss that later. Are there any other comments on the minutes, please? In which case we'll move on to the next item, and this is the Wellbeing Board High-Level Deliverables Annual Update. And I think we've got a trio of presenters for this. I think you're going to start, Mubashir, with the overview for last year and the suggested high-level deliverables for this year, and then we're going to go to Anita and Jed, I think, as well.
We'll go to Simon and Jed.
Simon and Jed, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Although Anita's welcome to speak if she'd like to.
Yeah.
So I think the paper has been shared, Craig, ahead of time. Thank you. The purpose of providing an update on the high-level deliverables from last year is something that we started from last year when we presented the deliverables from 2019-2020 and then discussed the deliverables for the next year. I think instead of actually going through each of the updates, I think I'll assume everyone has read. I'll just focus on some of the highlights that we pulled out in terms of the key achievements from 2021-22. So we've been running the Thrive into Work IPS trials, as you know, and we are one of the exemplar sites in addition to Cardiff and Sheffield. The program work has continued brilliantly thanks to Anita and team throughout the pandemic, and it's been exceeding its set targets, which has meant that we've secured additional 2.84 million funds to extend the program on to March 2023. And moreover, I think there's now a call out for taking the program forward for another 2 years, and we're confident that we'll be able to secure it for the region and bring more money into the region with that. There's another key achievement in the sense of trying to set up a coalition panel, which is being chaired by Mark Axel. Thank you again. And that will be the guiding panel for the program going forward. And Anita will continue to report back into the Wellbeing Board as the program proceeds. For Thrive at Work, we successfully held Thrive Awards, which were missing during the pandemic. And we again got to hear some of the real impact the program has on not just organizations, but employee well-being as well in some of the case studies that we saw. It continues to show how a program focusing on well-being and mental health of employees is quite the need, especially after the pandemic. And we've been working with MHPP and Sean Russell to extend the program funding, which has been successful. thanks to Sean and his team at MHPP, as well as our colleagues here who run the Thrive at Work program. So we have funding now until the end of 2023, and we will touch upon the review of the program that we've run with Jed at helm, and we'll discuss that in a bit, and he's going to come in. We also established the Health of the Region core group, which was one of the requests from the Health of the Region roundtable, something that was set up during the pandemic, and then as a commitment within the Health of the Region report. The core group is led by Amrit Singh, and he's an independent chair, and we have independent vice chairs, and they coordinate between the Health of the Region roundtable as well as the Wellbeing Board in terms of raising the profile of issues that the community brings to the fore. We obviously shifted the focus towards health inequalities within the Combined Authority, and we've done a couple of really high-profile projects with the Black Country ICB, as well as the BSOL ICB ICSs as they were before. And we've established the Mental Health Commission, which is chaired by the chair of the Coventry and Warwickshire ICS, Danielle Oom, and has chief executive sponsorship from Helen Patterson. We've held 2 full meetings to date, and we'll get an update on that today as well from Jed. As part of that work, we also did a community listening exercise and focused specifically on underrepresented groups on the pandemic's impact of mental health and well-being of this cohort. We have been delivering the Include Me program. I think at the last board meeting, we went through the review of that program, and on the back of that, we are going to be seeking a disability strategy for the region, as mentioned before. We have also concluded our work on the City's Health Inequalities Project, which was funded by the Health Foundation, and it has gotten national profile again. This is a combined project with GLA and Greater Manchester, and some of the framework and tools that we've produced as a part of that report have been used by new combined authorities to see how they can address health inequalities within their region. Last but not least, we were successful in receiving some feasibility study money for the Department for Transport, Social Prescribing, Walking and Cycling pilot. Simon's going to be taking us through that later today in terms of the next steps with that work and how we are hoping to win the funding for the region for the larger program. So just a very quick rundown of what we think were some of the highlights from the last year. There were some high-level deliverables, obviously, that we were not able to complete, mainly because some of them were meant to be extended into the next year, and that's been highlighted in our new high-level deliverables. As mentioned before, we have new guiding principles for the team, focusing quite a bit on what our core functions are within the Combined Authority and how we can actually use them better to address health outcomes. We continue to attract funding into the region and try to become a regional voice on health inequalities along with our partners. And again, with partners to try and maximize economic opportunities for the health and care economy, and specifically focusing on the health tech and med tech sector. And continue to deliver some of our grant funded programs from Sport England, as well as with MHPP and the Work and Health Unit. So the new high-level deliverables have been simplified around 4 key ones with milestones under each. And you'll see that they line up according to the principles that we've suggested. So we will conclude the Mental Health Commission and take forward the recommendations. We will deliver a work program to promote and enhance evidence-based approach on preventing and tackling health inequalities, along with our partners. And we'll continue to deliver on both Thrive Into Work and then Thrive at Work programs. So the milestones that we've set out link directly to those, and some of those are what we would like to continue forward with in terms of the work that we started last year. So I'll pause there because I'm assuming people will have questions, members will have questions about the new deliverables and how we've set them out.
Thank you very much, Bashir. It's always good to reflect on achievements. Some of this, the system is so complicated, isn't it? And reflecting on how the Combined Authority is able to add value and on the specific deliverables is a very useful exercise. So, members of the board, are there any questions? There is essentially 3 bits to this presentation, I think. One is about what we did last year. One is about the kind of principles that the team is working within the Combined Authority around, and that's in para 3.2. And then we've got the proposals for the deliverables for the coming year. Are there any comments, questions, thoughts? Are we happy? Are we not? Clara.
I'm just flicking back, but something that you mentioned, I think, in the work from last year that you've nearly finished, which would be incredibly helpful for all of us, is the combination, and this is very technical, but it's something that we're all working on, is the combination of the HEAT tool with the equality impact assessment element, because all of us are trying to work out how to assess plans going forwards in the best way around structure. And I think it says on here that it's nearly done and going to be presented, but if that is the case, then it saves me having to do the work locally. So I just wondered where we were with that.
I can take that. At the moment, we were initially trying to work with the CA to get them to adopt HEAT instead of the Equalities Impact Assessment, because as those of you who've looked at the HEAT tool will realise that there's a lot of crossover and similarities. We've got to a place where we've compromised and they've been merged together. So we have a draft document which has been piloted with a couple of projects in the Combined Authority. A paper's been written to take to the corporate leadership team in the Combined Authority for agreement and sign off for adoption. So it's not formally adopted at the moment, so it's going through the process, but we can share the merger that we've got, the paper that's been written forward explaining the work, and I'm sure the Equalities Impact Manager at the Combined Authority would be happy to talk to anybody who wants to sort of make the case for merging with the Equalities Impact Assessment, because she's now very supportive of that. So I can share all of that with Craig to make sure it's circulated to everybody here.
I certainly know that in the national presentations from NHS England, the complementarity of the health inequalities duty within the NHS and the equalities duty is being stressed. And so I'm sure, as Clara's outlined, having some kind of tool that actually helps bring that together for use in planning will be very helpful. Does that help, Clara?
Yeah, no, it's really helpful, because if somebody's already doing that piece of work, then it saves a lot of us having to do it, because we're all kind of heading in that same direction around that piece of work. So if it could be shared, even if it's just in draft form, it'd be, for me, it would be very valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, it would probably be helpful when it is shared to get some feedback about whether it's useful and how it might be improved and how it could be used, particularly within the ICSs. That would be great. Mark.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just looking at the principles on 3.2, and as members will be aware, ICB's formed on the 1st of July, and one thing that I think all of my ICB colleagues are acutely aware of is that we find the right population level for the maximum outcomes for the population that we represent, and that can span from a neighbourhood somewhere in the Black Country, local authority in the health and wellbeing boards, what we do at a Black Country level, and absolutely what we do at the West Midlands level. And I just wonder, in the principles, we maybe just need to find a little bit of wording that says what we're trying to achieve here is the best, the best outcomes for the right population level. And there will undoubtedly be things we want to do at a West Midlands level that we'll talk about later in the Devo deal. But I think it's worth raising that as a working principle, because I think otherwise, if we're not careful, we may end up as we go through development of ICBs, local authorities' role in health and wellbeing, we might end up tripping over each other a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important, isn't it? And I've been out of this conversation for a little while, so I'm not quite sure where we are in terms of the kind of refresh of our top level statement, really, about the outcomes, as Mark mentions. I mean, clearly we've got the clear focus through levelling up on the improvement in healthy life expectancy and the reduction in the inequalities gap in healthy life expectancy. I'm not sure, and you'll be able to clarify, whether that is the overarching outcome that we're seeking, because clearly there are a number of frameworks that then, sit underneath that, not least the sort of King's Fund 4 pillars of health that we could use to be rather more systematic, I suppose, in the application of these principles, which I think is what Mark is alluding to, so that we're clear what is best done at this level and what only the combined authority can do, as opposed to other parts and at other geographies.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of specific outcomes, we have outlined a few in the inclusive growth framework, which link to health inequalities, and they are linked to healthy life expectancy. And they will also be reflected within the West Midlands outcomes framework that we will use for the trailblazing devolution deal proposal. So when we set out these principles, they were not necessarily aligned directly to specific outcomes. They were meant more in general in trying to convince the rest of the CA functions to think about health outcomes in a more generic sense, but we use the inclusive growth framework as a way in. And then we work really, really closely with our colleagues who've developed the framework to think about how we can use that in conjunction with the health in all policies approach to really come up with a unique way of influencing health outcomes through our current devolved functions. So the answer is yes, it links to the healthy life expectancy outcome. However, that's not the original intention that we set out. We wanted to generically influence health outcomes through those functions. Now that we're developing and going further, since these principles were developed, I think it would be well worth actually linking them directly to the outcomes. And that will slightly depend on the outcome of the devolution.
Thank you, Mubashir. So I think what we're saying, I'll come to Clara again in a moment, is that principles are great, and what we want to do, particularly as we move forward in the conversation about the devolution deal, is to frame the principles, add the principle that Mark has suggested around doing things at the right geographical level, but then also frame the principles so that there is a clear link to the way in which those principles are enacted, clear link between that and the outcomes that we're collectively seeking. Does that cover your point, Mark?
It does, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Clara?
It's just a bit on the back of Mark's one as well, is that concept of where are we better together than apart. So as Mark says, we're kind of coming from neighbourhood all the way up to ICS, and it's what is that clear narrative for all of us of where are we working better together? What is the advantages of us, these pieces of work done collectively as opposed to at an ICS level or any other level? And I think that that's what we're saying here, but it's just that clear narrative of, and I come completely with the levelling up the Devo deal, and that's very clear. But otherwise, we're doing the same bits of work in different areas and making sure that we get best value for the work that we are doing in these elements.
And there are two things here, aren't there? Really, one is the point about what only the combined authority can do because of its wider mandate and set of opportunities that wider mandate gives. And then, as you say, what else are we better doing together at this geography as opposed to any other geography? And I'm also mindful that in addition to the geographies that we've mentioned, we've also got a West Midlands collaborative, ICS collaborative set of discussions going on as well. And so this is quite a complicated question, isn't it, about what are we best working on together at this metropolitan level, if I can call it that, as opposed to the wider West Midlands. Okay, I think. Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. Mike.
Thank you. Hopefully to be helpful. I note in Mubashir's report, he references this as an evidence-based approach. And I also note that you've mentioned, Mubashir, that you're taking on a technology lead. I'm not sure if I've got that title right, but you brought somebody in to work on the collation of data. And again, I think that this is happening on multiple levels. It's being done in local levels. It's being done within ICB level. It's being done at authority level. And it's just making sure that we pull all that together, because if we all work together and pull in the same direction, we'll get more done more quickly. For example, I was on a meeting yesterday with Ming Tang, who's the national lead for data and bringing data together, and there is a national NHS procurement for a trusted research environment that's about to go out to market. This is a kind of it's over £200 million procurement for a system that will pull together data to evidence and to support through evidence-based approaches for health and well-being. And Mubashir and myself and Tatum have been talking about how we can link wider data sets together, which I think we'll get to later on the agenda. But it's just a plea that maybe, Mubashir, we have a further conversation with this technical lead that you brought in to make sure that we're all facing the same direction with this, and all of our efforts are aligned, because things like information governance are notorious for being repeated over and over again, and everybody's trying to solve the same problems. We can probably do this very efficiently if we work together.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. I'm going to move us on in the interest of time, but that's been a good conversation. Thank you very much. Are we hearing from Jed next?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks. In hybrid meetings, I never know where to look, to be honest. But anyway, I'm going to give an update on Thrive at Work. I'm going to cover three things. One is kind of some headlines in terms of the progress. Second, I'm going to talk about kind of the refresh and kind of direction of travel. And third bit is kind of what the ask is of Wellbeing board members. So starting at the beginning with the progress report, in real headline terms, I mean, I'm taking the report as read, so I'm not going to go into detail, but nearly 90 organisations are accredited at some level in Thrive. And that's foundation, bronze and silver levels. Over 200 organisations are pursuing some form of accreditation. And on an ongoing basis, on a monthly basis, there's 100 organisations been involved in some kind of engagement activities through the Thrive at Work team and colleagues. And there's thousands of imprints on the kind of social media and online work that the team does. So there's a really good ongoing work from the Thrive at Work team. But one of the things obviously we recognised was the world's changing, not least because of the pandemic. Also, funding requirements have changed. And again, we're funded by MHPP or via MHPP. So the funding requirements from government have changed. So we needed to take a bit of a step back and think about how to continue to progress the programme to make sure it's fit for current times. And Tatum commissioned an independent review. I'm not going to try and take the credit for that. So Tatum commissioned an independent review which looked at kind of Thrive, where it's at and what needs to happen going forwards. One key part of the review was about sustainability, financial sustainability of the model. So that's one thing to bear in mind. In broad terms, without going into the detail, there are a number of things that came out of the review, not least the fact that there's an opportunity to be more proactive in terms of kind of engaging and supporting organisations. That was kind of one of the headline things, because a number of organisations struggle. So, you know, might have the aspiration, might have the commitment, but actually kind of taking that through was difficult. So one kind of headline thing was about how can we be more proactive and engaging with organisations. Another example of headline thing is there's a lot of business engagement work taking place. How can we make sure it's joined up and effective? And again, how can we work thinking within the context of the new directorate that we're in, join up business engagement activities, thinking about partners, MHPP, etc. How can we make sure that we're really having bang for our bucks in terms of engaging with organisations and making sure the benefits of a wellbeing programme kind of penetrate the system, for want of a better term. So there's a lot of kind of useful feedback that came out of the independent review. One of the challenges that was financial sustainability at this point in time is not there. We're still going to be reliant on grant funding, so that was quite a big piece. So in terms of kind of the way forward, amongst other things, this is about how do we engage with and hear the voices of businesses and organisations who would benefit from the programme. So one of the aspirations is how do we set up a steering group, reference group to kind of shape and drive the direction of the programme, and how do we do that? One, within the new context of the directorate that we're in, but also working very closely with MHPP partners. Another kind of aspiration was how can we make sure that there is a proactive account management approach which takes account of sector, size of organisations and the local footprint and local infrastructure. So what does that look like? How can we kind of localise the offer where meaningful and appropriate? There's also something about how we make sure that there's a clear understanding of what difference the programme's actually making. So again, there's joint work between ourselves in Thrive at Work and as partners of MHPP to have a common data set which kind of makes clear what difference the programme makes and what difference and how we understand that, both for employers in the round which we work through, but also for individual employees as well. So how can we have that clear focus on impact and what difference it makes? So that's kind of some real broad headlines in terms of some of the things that came out of the review. But in terms of kind of what the ask is from Wellbeing Boards, one is the views of yourselves as Wellbeing Board members in terms of kind of direction of travel. Have you got any thoughts, ideas in terms of kind of how we refresh Thrive? So that's one area. Second is to note that there is an internal task and finish group, which is aiming to join up the dots in terms of things like business engagement, etc., within CA to kind of drive the agenda forward. Third thing is to note that our plans will be clearly aligned with MHPP plans in relation to demonstrating impact, reach into different sectors, different types of organisations, different localities. So noting those plans. And also, I think finally, thinking about kind of how external organisations, businesses specifically, but also local authority partners, OHID, etc., can help to influence and drive the agenda going forwards in terms of a refresh. In terms of timescale, we want to be in a position where we've got a clear, different, refresh programme, certainly by the winter. So at the very, very latest by the end of December, we want to be crystal clear in terms of this direction of travel, this shape of the new programme, etc. So that's kind of some headlines for you.
Thank you very much, Jed. I think that's really very clear. Are there any views either on the review itself or on the proposed recommendations? Are we generally content? I think we are, Jed. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry,
no, I was just going to say, I think, we also have an update on Thriving to Work within the paper, which is covered there. I think we're just not going to go into it in depth, but if there are any questions members have, then we can address those as well. But we will jump to the in-depth look into the work Simon's doing under health.
I mean, the Thrive at Work work is extremely important, isn't it? Obviously, we wouldn't be doing it if we, and the idea of having a refresh at this moment seems extremely timely for all sorts of reasons. And the engagement with businesses clearly got to be a key focus of that. And you've obviously got that in your sights within the recommendations. So I think we're content with those, and we'll now move on to Simon and the physical activity work.
Thank you. So my name's Simon Hall. I'm the strategic lead for Wellbeing and Prevention. And very much our role at CA level is what we can convene, what could we influence, and how do we enable delivery. And that has been a focus of delivery of the HLDs listed on page 8, WB04 and 05. That question, Mark and colleagues, that you've raised around that value has been very much at the heart of our work. So where do we begin to see that value from locality up to region and region up to national? And that's reflected in our work programme and the summary I'm going to give now, if that's okay. That value is really illustrated through the work where we're now involved around the Commonwealth Games. I had the great opportunity to work with DCMS and Birmingham 2022 and Birmingham City Council in terms of shaping their Commonwealth Games legacy, vision, mission and pillars, and spending much time and energy around that physical activity and wellbeing work. It's really good to begin to see that delivery of the physical activity and wellbeing legacy now happening on the ground through the Commonwealth Active Communities, for example, which is being invested by Sport England. Alongside that, Sport England and ourselves are jointly investing in the work that needed to encourage that joint working between partners. How do we get that stronger, better collaborative leadership at a local level? Before the game started, we're on a fast track to launch next week a sports equipment gift scheme. So all the bits and pieces, from scribbage to banners to signage to pew bikes, that will be available through the games. I think it's about 2,500 items. We're working on a scheme with DCMS and Sport England to get that out to the communities in most need. And I think that's a really great opportunity to drive that legacy. But fundamental to our work with the system and that value is how to ensure there is a long-lasting legacy around physical activity around the games. That it's not that 2-week window. That within it, do something similar to Glasgow, that over 15 years on, we'll be able to still measure and understand and realise that impact. So we are convening a meeting with representatives from local authorities, NHS, OHID, sport physical activity partners, to get round the table and begin to see how do we develop those principles that Mark referred to, so we can see and realise that value longer term from locality to regional. And that's going to be facilitated by the Leadership Centre and University of Birmingham on our behalf. And we hope, as Sue highlighted, that we can bring a paper moving forward. We intend to build on that relationship we have with Sport England, which is now coming to the end around a test and learn grant programme that we've had. But we now begin to realise that the impact of that joint investment into, for example, Black Country Moving, which is now their Commonwealth Active Communities delivery. We've been looking at ways in which we activate and encourage that change in policy and practice around active environments. And it's good to see around Sandwell, for example, exploring how they can develop their pilot around Gospel Oak Road Parklet into something that could be considered across the borough, around how do you bring back into use designated green space for and with communities. Much attention in the paper is also given around our Include Me West Midlands work, which is our disability work strand as referred to about improving health outcomes for disabled people. We've really worked hard with the system to begin to see where that added value would be. What could we do at regional level that that can support and enable delivery on the ground? So developing that citizens network, developing a pledge and a commitment from over 100 organisations around being more inclusive and more accessible, and more driven by the citizen voice around physical activity and sport delivery, is begin to see that impacting change. We've been working and we're just completing the end of pilots around improving or testing. Can we improve the confidence of disabled people using public transport to get to places to be active? And we'll be setting out the impact report around that shortly. How can we activate that inclusivity and accessibility within sports clubs and organisations? And again, we're just completing the evaluation report from that. We've built the energy around citizens' voice, a real strong citizen voice around physical activity. And we're beginning to work with partners to understand what is that individual and collective action that we can begin to see around improving those outcomes for disabled people. We are blessed by having a secondment from Activity Alliance of Mark Fosbrook, a Paralympian amputee, who has been really instrumental in driving this work and really being that strong advocate and influencer around what we're doing around disabled people as an organisation, let alone in this physical activity space. We're now working on our long-term partnership with Sport England, which we are going to work with the system to begin to see where that added value that the combined authority can offer within by working with Sport England, who are investing across that locality region spectrum. Lots of attention has been given to work with my colleagues on this side of the table as Wellbeing SMT about how do we begin to influence our corporate priorities, not least around transport and housing. On transport, we've been working on the local transport plan around that health inequalities evidence. How do we build health stronger into the strategic priorities of the local transport plan? And we're beginning to see some traction with the work, and particularly Stacey and myself working on that piece. We've also enabled us to access funding through the West Midlands Active Travel Fund to do more health-related active travel, not least in terms of community engagement, not least in terms of getting more disabled people active. And we were fortunate last year, one of the projects we funded through Midland Mancap had the National Active Travel Award for community best practice. And we've been testing and trialling work around social prescribing, walking and cycling. I hope today to bring you some really good news from government around our bid to be one of its social prescribing, walking and cycling pilots. But unfortunately, government has confirmed that it is likely that we won't hear an announcement on that £1.67 million bid until later this summer. It may be a long, hot summer this year. And I'd really like to thank local authority, ICSs, and a whole range of partners to enable us to work together at scale to really find that value in place for that social prescribing work. 7 local authorities, public health and transport, 3 ICSs, 32 PCNs, 40 surgeries and a range of community organisations willing to begin to test around where the real value could be by working together. Our aim is to test and learn and embed social prescribing activities for patients who have a disability or a musculoskeletal health condition. 30% of patients going to GP surgeries will come in around pain. So how do we activate that physical activity opportunity? We are going to target in areas of poor health. We are looking at ways in which we can encourage behaviour change. We would invest in workforce development, 7 navigators across the system to begin to look at what we can do to deliver that change. We're also committed to working with our transport team on how do we drive that inclusive active travel behaviour change longer term. And that's a really exciting opportunity to take forward the work regardless of the outcome of the DFT bid. What we're asking today is approval from the Wellbeing Board to establish that steering group. Taking that step forward that we will be successful. So we're seeking approval to set up that steering group who will steer development, will ensure delivery, manage the risks and make sure we're capturing the learning impact of that pilot and how that's bedded across the system. We want that to report into our Wellbeing Board. Also, we're asking for approval for that to be chaired by the Adam Tranter, who's the Walking and Cycling Commissioner. So that's my summary, and those are my two main recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Do we have any comments on Simon's report? There's a whole raft of really good work there, Simon, and again, trying to you're illustrating the way in which the partnership is trying to find that added value of working together, which is so important in this space, because it's a very crowded space, is it not? Yeah. And the success of it in terms of the hopefully getting this pilot and leveraging the additional funding is evident. Any comments? I've got a hand up, but I can't quite see who it is.
Justin Farming.
Justin, I didn't realise you were online. Good morning, Justin.
Morning. Hi, I'm joining you from our Cabinet Away Day, so apologies, the angle's not the most flattering, nor is the lighting. I just want to say I really support this from Public Health Director perspective. I think it sits well alongside the work we're doing with clinicians, particularly in Birmingham and Solihull ICS, around the commitment made by the ICS to train 1,000 healthcare professionals to deliver brief advice on physical activity during the year of the Commonwealth Games. And I know other areas in the CA footprint are looking to mirror that commitment, maximise the potential, because in order for this to work, we have to be really delivering a whole system approach that connects the advice that's giving in healthcare settings with support in community physical activity, which is able to enable and support people with health conditions to be active. So I really commend it, but also it's important to see it as part of a wider strategy and an integrated approach.
Thanks very much for that, Justin. We'll carry on if that's okay. This is just a fire alarm test, which hopefully will stop at the So thank you for that support. As you say, the point here is about the added value and is about developing a whole system approach. Attention please. Attention please. Fire has been reported in the building. Thoughts or comments? Please leave immediately by the nearest exit. Okay, so Simon has specifically asked us to approve the establishment of the new pilot. Immediately by the nearest exit. And can we otherwise receive the report?
Yeah.
Attention please. Attention please. I think we're agreeing that.
Sorry, Chair.
Stop.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues. Now, we've reached 11:02, and I'm mindful that this is my fault as chair, because I thought this part of the meeting went on a bit longer than clearly we had for it. We're determined to have the last. The fire alarm test is now complete. The fire alarm test is now complete. Okay. So we were going to talk a bit more, I think, about the Mental Health Commission before we bring this part of the agenda to a close. So with your permission, colleagues, we'll just allow a short period of time to do that before we go into private session.
Chair, are you happy to give us 5 minutes?
Yeah, I'll do a whistle stop. So Mental Health Commission has been convened. As Mubashir said, there's been an initiation meeting where the membership got to meet each other and ways of working were agreed, and also 3 other topics were confirmed. And there's been 2 topic meetings, so 3 topics thus far that are planned. So first topic that's taken place in May was looking at the impact of the pandemic on the mental health and wellbeing of children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities, those transitioning to different parts of the education system, those excluded and those also homeschooled. So there's a piece of work there. There's some emerging recommendations. Just to give you a very quick flavour of some of the ideas that were coming out of the Commission. One was about thinking very clearly about the fact that exclusions are sometimes driven by unrecognised, undiagnosed mental health difficulties, and so thinking about how the system can work differently and better to support zero exclusions. There was also consideration to kind of access to all for all schools filtering to counselling. So there's a range of different things that came out as emerging recommendations, which will be tested with stakeholders over the next few months. Second topic area was looking at sports and physical activities and the opportunity they present in relation to mental health and wellbeing. I'm going to very quickly pause on this because obviously because of the Commonwealth Games linked, looked at the legacy issues and some of the things that came out of in terms of the emerging thinking of the Commission. Justin's on the call, so I may want to comment on this. One of the things that's come out of that discussion is the potential for a joint statement to be landed at the Commonwealth Sports Ministers meeting on the 27th of July, which basically endorses the importance of sports and physical activities to mental health and wellbeing, but also in terms of some other emerging areas that were kind of considered as being important. One was about obviously connecting local people and local communities to the assets that exist in relation to the Commonwealth Games infrastructure, etc., to make sure that we're maximising their health and their mental health and wellbeing, stuff around that. Thinking about real-time research and evidence generation involving higher education institutions, but also being really closely connected to local communities. Thinking about also about systematically building sports and physical activities into health and care pathways, which is, again, to make it systematised and what that looks like going forwards, and making that kind of a key area of priority for, or encouraging the ICSs to take that as a key area of priority. So that gives you a flavour of what came out the second one. And obviously there's more detail that can be provided when Simon brings the broader legacy report to the next meeting. Third area that's been agreed that will take place in November is racial inequalities and mental health. That will be in November. And then on Monday, there's a session for Commission members to agree the next 3 topics or the future 3 topics, because the idea of the Commission is to look at 6 topics in total. So that's a kind of whistle stop.
That's really helpful, Jane. Can I just ask, so in terms of these topics, all of which sound, you know, as if they are touching on really important areas of unmet need, what happens? So the conversation is had, the report is made, and then what happens?
What we're aiming to do is, because we're trying to avoid big bangs at the end and also avoid the culture of surprises, what we're trying to do for each topic report is generate an interim report with initial findings and initial recommendations, and then kind of test that with stakeholders, say this is kind of what's emerging, what do you think? So do that for each topic during the life of the Commission, and by the time we get to January, pull it all together and say this is broadly what the Commission believes are key findings, key recommendations, and the Commission then has got to agree with system partners how those actions can be delivered and what the mechanism is to monitor and review progress.
Okay. And presumably this board will see the progress towards that and the final output.
Yeah, all updates will come to this board, yes.
That's fine, thank you very much. Are there any questions about all of that? And I think hugely important, and again, this idea of being very opportunistic as well, particularly in terms of the legacy around the Commonwealth Games, the idea that we're catching a wave and we're surfing it really, aren't we, in terms of the link between the physical activity and the mental health legacy of the Commonwealth Games, and building on that through the Mental Health Commission. Really exciting, really good work. Hopefully we will also see that input, that position statement in the meeting of the sports ministers, and certainly we're within OHED trying to do what we can to support that.
Yeah.
Any other comments on where we're up to with the Mental Health Commission, colleagues? Okay, so just wrapping up this whole item then, I think what we're asked to do is to receive the annual update, which we do, that we're asked to endorse and support the future deliverables, which we've done. We've noted the need for a narrative for to link the principles and the high-level deliverables with the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, to make it clearer about how what we do at this level is then distinct and complementary to what happens at other geographical levels. We've endorsed the recommendations in relation to Thrive at Work and in relation to physical activity, and we've noted with great support the work of the Mental Health Commission, and look forward to hearing further about that. Which I think then just brings us on to the final agenda item, which is the forward plan. As we've gone through this meeting, we've identified a couple of areas that we would want to see brought forward, and I won't rehearse those again. Are there any other items that colleagues would like to see on our forward agendas for this Wellbeing Board? Anybody on the lines? Okay. Do you want to come back on any of that, Mubashir?
No, I just want to thank the board for your input. Certainly, it's been a lively discussion on most of those updates that were presented, and we've noted down what we suggested as forward plan in terms of what to bring back to the board in future meetings. And I just, Chair, if you'd allow me, would like to welcome Dr. Julie Nugent to the board as the new Exec Director for Economy, Skills and Health and Communities. And apologies, she was running late, so I didn't mention it at the beginning, but it is in linked to the initial point about our new restructure within the Combined Authority and how we are now better aligned in terms of embedding within some of our current evolved functions. So on that note.
Yes, thank you very much. And I note also that we've got Councillor Izzy Second with us now. Hi, Izzy.
Hi, Sue.
Please,
and everybody. Thank you, but thank you so much for picking up the baton and running with it. I'm so sorry it all changed last minute.
No probs. I'm very happy to do that. So we're going to close the public part of this board meeting. Wellbeing board members and observers to remain, please. I don't think we've got any members of the public online, but obviously, were we to have those, we would ask members of the public to leave at this point. And Izzy, are you okay if I now hand the private part of this briefing back to you to take?
Well, I'm very happy to